Hi, good evening, and welcome once again to the Gildarie Freddie Show right here on the Guyanese Critic platform on Facebook, and it's coming to you live also on Facebook. Tonight's very important. We are dealing with the issue of labor in Guyana. Lots of things that are happening on the labor front, and of course, if we're to move this country to the next level, you have to address some of the shortcomings, and shortcomings there are many of that. And there's an expert, well, at least he's supposed to be, somebody who is shepherding the labor situation in Guyana from the ministerial perspective. And I'm going to introduce him in a very short while. I want to say welcome once again to my co host, Freddie Kissoon. I understand that we were the subject of a conversation between Rickford Burke as well as the Guyanese critic, following Freddie's outburst on, was it Monday? Well, we're not going to get into that. We've been told and warned that we should make it short and snappy today, so we're going to get right into it. We have with us here Mr. Joseph Hamilton. He's the Minister of Labour and somebody who's well experienced in the matter of many things. He would have been involved as a data manager at the Guyana Elections Commission. He would have also been involved as a councillor at the Mayan City Council. Mayan City Council, sorry. And so he has a lot of other experience that we're going to talk about. But I want to hand the mic very quickly to Freddie Kissoon before we start the ball rolling. Quick, short, and snappy tonight is going to be. Freddie.
Well, with each human, there is a different interpretation of what quick means. Let me start by a philosophical reflection on humans. Humans generally tend to criticize people when they have faults, and we never want to sing praise to them when praise is due. Let me tell the public tonight what Minister Hamilton did, which I think is a good sign that people with power should embody. GWI had retrenched over 100 workers. And among those workers was someone who grew up in front of me in Workmanville and used to knock around my mother-in-law's supermarket. And she had him there as a little errand boy. He had 5 children, and he came to me and said, look, it's desperation. I called Sheikh Bash, GWI head, and he said, it's a done deal. The list is with the Ministry of Labour. So I called the Minister of Labour and said, could something be done for this guy? He said, no, the list is at the Ministry of Labour simply for them to get what financial benefits. But I could employ this little guy at my ministry. And if you tell me the particulars, I will employ him right away. And believe it or not, Minister Hamilton employed the boy right away. Little fellow with 5 kids. And I met him on the beach 2 months ago on the seawall, and he said he's happy. So before I turn over back to Gildarie, I'd like to ask Minister Hamilton to keep an eye on him and if he could pursue instant promotion.
Instant promotion.
Minister Hamilton. Because with maybe a few short remarks, because we have some questions here in the hot seat tonight, and we want to make sure that we keep you very uncomfortable here. This is not a nice time.
I have some questions.
Look, the thing is, the Guyana must recognize that we cannot discuss development without discussing how we frame labor relations. I believe that too long as a nation, it is something that we treated not with the due respect that it should be treated with. The whole issue about what a Ministry of Labour is, what it should be. In some countries, the Ministry of Labour is Ministry of Labour and Employment. So the state look to the Ministry of Labour to not just deal with labour relations, but to deal with the whole issue of planning for the development of skills and all that kind of thing. And so, to begin with, the background is we didn't have a Ministry of Labour when the PPP got into office August 2020. So I was appointed minister, and I had to reestablish a ministry, build structure, and at the same time give service. And I would say in the last 2 years, we have done mighty good work. The fact that the ministry has been expanded into all the regions as I speak to you. We have offices and in every region in this country, first time in history again. And we have labor offices all over the country in every region. And guiding principles of the ministry, because I thought to develop the ministry, you have to find pillars to develop in. So the three pillars are training and retraining of workers. The second pillar is the whole issue of human development. Because I believe the Ministry of Labor, we have a role to play in the issue of proper health care, proper education, development for people and their children, housing, and those issues. And of course, the other issue, the protection of the rights of workers. And protection of the rights of workers is not screaming adversarially with employers to say just pay the man more money. One of the most important things to an employee is safe work conditions. Because if you can raise his pay to $5,000 per day, if the man will die tomorrow, you have not done anything for him. So I see the issue about salaries and wages, it must be married to safety at work. And so that is how I have been promoting these matters. And the whole issue about how we get to the place where Guyana, we have all the necessary technical skills to manage the country that is before us and is developing. And so those are the things I would want to speak around. You ask me any question.
Well, we have lots
I
of
can answer
questions
them.
here for you, Minister. Minister, just before we go there are three significant things that happened today, at least from my perspective, that we should be take note of, maybe not discuss right away. One, signed a major deal, Freddie Kissoon, and this is something we have to discuss. $2 billion American into the play now. We would have seen in the past, China would have probably been the one that was coming and offering us. Here it is at the US now. We saw yesterday the FBI here, and they're really extending the arm. A beautiful country, a beautiful woman here. I read that enticing. Also today, which I thought was one of the big stories, AG and Nanlal announced that the Deeds and Commercial Registry to open all day instead of closing for lunch. And that's something I had a serious problem with. Most people get a lunch break, go do government business, and there you are staring in the face, lunchtime close up. My thing.
It's stupidity. I went to uplift a car that I imported, and GRA on the wharf was on lunch. I could not believe that in the 21st century.
No, but this is where we started.
It is when you're at lunch, then you have time to go and do things.
But yes, I went to. I
jeez.
can't call the government business. It's
Call
one of my
the
clients.
government.
No. Sorry, the private sector business. It's one of my clients, and I went in there and they said come back 1 o'clock, and I couldn't believe it. I don't know of anybody that closes for lunch.
That is when you get time to do things because you're at work all day, and the employer tells you you have an hour.
You go to lunch, Mr.
You
Minister?
No, I don't know go to lunch. And what I've instituted at my ministry, that the place stays open all the time. People have to rotate themselves to go to lunch. That is the
No, but
employees.
now that Minister Nandala has done that, the government has to do it all over, and private sector has to follow because it is commonsensical. We living in the 21st century. A person works all don't get an hour, and we just call it lunch hour. But it's your hour to do what you want to do.
That's exactly
to
the whole
run
thing.
to the Ministry of Education, to run here.
Government ministries, state agencies, and of course other businesses. I hope that you guys are taking note, especially the banking association. And so when I see people and you just go to a teller and then you see 5 tellers down and 1 teller operating, that is not good enough. There was one other significant story that I think that is going to warrant some good discussion. 3 to 5 thousand vehicles have been stuck for several months in Jamaica. The whole shipping industry across the world, it's not happening, and it's creating untold impact.
So Freddie, Freddie vehicle is on the ship.
No, I
Freddie
got
has a
my
nice
vehicle much to I wouldn't mind that Minister Harmon. Oh my goodness. Minister Hamilton, you know that could be a Freudian slip.
No.
He did that deliberately.
A lot of people say that. All I respond to say that I'm far more handsome.
I know you're
than the
related
guy.
to him.
I'm far more handsome than the guy, Freddie. So I hold nothing. I hold nothing against you.
Your sartorial appearance is more penetrating than him. On a serious note, I was looking for my article that I did to give you it. I think the Labour Department has become anachronistic in the third world, in post-colonial society, especially in small society. And I did a column in which I showed how it could be reorganized. And that was one of the things, Minister Hamilton, or Joe, that I wanted to do after 2015. I wanted to go at the Ministry of Labour and reorganize the Ministry of Labour, because here is the thing about it. You can't ask a public servant earning 80,000, 75,000 to go and confront a multi-billionaire entrepreneur about industrial violations.
Good point.
I have seen too many payoffs. You know, if policemen are corrupt because the pay is low, if GRA people are open to temptation, why labor officers cannot be? I think the Labour Department should be taken out of the public service, made independent of the ministry, though it will ultimately be used.
You're talking about a regulatory agency, kind of?
That I'm talking about an agency, not regulatory, an agency that has independence and has financially sound of researchers that could go and do these things. And so they're not susceptible to businessmen bribing them. After you answer that, we can't have you here without talking about dinosaurs in trade unionism, ineffective trade unionism. No, this dinosaur thing is serious. We'll come to that after you answer the question.
No, but the thing is that, Freddie, look, and the background I am saying to you is this. You had no labor ministry. You had a department in another ministry. So that means the former government didn't pay attention to the matter. The ministry that I was appointed to manage, just to make a point that it has grown significantly. The issue that you have raised is an important issue. For the matter, when I got to the ministry, people brought allegations like that to me. And I had conversations with labor officers, and I make the point that I am not going back in time. I would deal with the circumstances of everything from the 5th of October when I walked into that place. What I can say to you, in the period I am there, I have not heard that kind of report has not come to me. What I can say to you is this. Last year, we recouped nearly $39 million for workers from the same employers that are moneyed. We are already at $14 million we have recouped from employees. I know the temptation and all the things that you speak to. What I can tell you that this minister is very proactive. This minister has gone on the phone, picked it up, and had conversations with some powerful people who were playing around with ordinary people. And my style is this: I say to them, either you bring the check, you pay the person, or I call a press conference. And I can tell you, that everybody is responding, they have responded because my intervention, many places, there's so many interventions at places where they have trade unions representing workers. And they did not create new conditions and different conditions for their workers. So they have a trade union there, I think GWU, and they imported a foreign labor relations management tool where they were doing what they call time banking. So when a man work overtime, they bank up his time, 4 hours, 10 hours, whatever, and they give the people a time off as they please. The law in Guyana law says the man must be paid time and a half after every 8 hours. So Freddie, I hear what you're saying. I know there have been allegations, but I'm not asleep in this matter. I know some of the issues, and I'm saying to you that I have gone myself. I don't leave it to both sides. I have gone there to say to them,
Yeah, we
listen,
read that. We read that.
right, to say to them, listen, because
you read the right time.
yes, what they were doing is they had people who they were giving month-to-month contract,
Wow.
and they have them as temporary workers, but they were temporary workers everlastingly because some people were working there for 3 years. The law says a man must be on probation for 3 months. If you want, you can extend the probation for another 3 months. But after 6 months, you have to decide whether you keep him as a permanent employee or whether you part company with him. You cannot have anyone beyond 6 months as a temporary. So I have gone to powerful people, the people who run stone quarries, Tulsi Prasad I've gone to BK Company, I have gone to Aurora Mining Company, I have gone to the Manganese Company and to intervene because when I became minister, people were working 12 hours in those places and they weren't paying them overtime 4 hours a day that they should have been paid. And so the point I'm making, Freddie, is that this minister is very proactive. I deal with these matters because I know the culture. I know the society, how it functions. Everybody utilizes someone's name in power to try to break the law. And, so Hamilton himself. And I've gotten favorable responses because the people recognize I don't play around, Look, I'm a ordinary country boy. I born and grew up in Triumph Village between cane cutters and fishermen. So I understand life and the struggles of life. And I will not allow no one who has money to think that they have latitude and impunity to take advantage of an ordinary person. Because ordinary persons have their own struggle.
But it's the ordinary persons that vote in governments. People forget if you total up all the business people in this country, in any country, it cannot give you more than 3 seats in parliament. The ordinary people could give you 25.
No,
So
I'm a politician and I pay attention to those matters that you have to give service. And that's the point I'm making, where this minister don't sit back and say, Chief Labor Officer, you go. You understand me? I intervene once I know, Freddie, I know the types in this society. And therefore Hamilton himself, he normally intervenes. Look, I can say to you, we have been able to have at least about 12 or 14 collective labor agreements signed, employers, representative and employer. Some of the employers didn't even want to sit at a table with the union. And I just said, expatriate company, DTL, for 5 years.
Limited?
Yes, 5 years they refused to sit at the same table with GAU. And I called them in. And they sent Guyanese management. When they came, they couldn't answer. I said, go bring the people who own the company. You understand me? And so the point I'm making is that you cannot be laid back to do this work to get justice for ordinary people. And that is what That is why I'm out there, and I will continue to do that. And nobody is sacred, and I've said that publicly. I continue to say that. There is no one who is sacred who I would allow to just break the law with impunity. And whilst we're doing that, we are also paying attention to strengthening the laws and to put stiff fines. Right now, we have taken our recommendation to the Attorney General chambers and the Attorney General, and they have a legal committee that are reviewing that. So the matter is important, and it will become more important, the fact that we're talking about development and all the issues about employees and their lives have to be protected.
Thank you very much,
Can I say
Minister.
something? I've watched the television interview programs all my life, and I've never seen an interviewer keep writing. What are you writing there?
I'm not as bright as you, Freddie.
No,
You
no,
are the
I don't mean
social
that.
man.
Why do you keep? What do you keep? No, I was curious in this
Because I
program
got to come
style.
back and ask the minister questions.
Oh,
Why you
I am
saying
no.
again?
I don't see. I'm just
keeping track
I'm
of
just
his
curious.
thoughts.
I'm just curious.
Not everybody's bright as
No,
you,
no,
Freddie.
please don't-
Minister,
please don't say that.
he's just needling me. I know.
No, no, I want to know what you're writing.
No, I'm not bright like you. I can't
No, no,
retain
don't say
everything,
that.
you know. All right, Minister. Recently, Robert Battle, there was been the commissioning of his property down at Kingston there, a very lovely, magnificent structure there. And he would have said that, unfortunately, he had to import skilled labor. We would have seen last year, I think it was the private sector in Berbice also raised the issue of a shortage of labor in the country. Has the government done anything at all to assess what the labor market is and whether on the short term or on the long term do we need to import labor, and what are we looking at, or what kind of figures are we looking at if so?
Well, a couple of things that are happening. I can say to you that I have seated a professor out of India who his credentials suggest that he helped the Indian government to frame the issue we're discussing here, all the research as regards the matter, labor market survey and so. He has a 3-year contract, one Professor Dr. Yadav, who is helping us with that matter, to put in place a statistical department that will continue to do that. So we're putting it together.
Do we have an idea what the situation is at the
No,
moment?
I would say this, and I'd say we don't have a total understanding of the matter. Because look, in one instance you have people saying they cannot get work, and on the other hand, the employers saying they are unable to find people to work. What is the issue? Is this a couple of things? One, schooling. As a nation, we have to pay attention to what is schooling. Is schooling only to make people academically inclined? And I think we still have that old over from the colonial time. We have to focus and pay attention on technical and vocational education and training, because that is where the skills are short in large numbers. Heavy duty equipment operators, welding and fabricators. We are oil producing country. One of the jobs that are needed by the hundreds in oil and gas is welders and fabricators. So the thing is now, and that's why you see me out all over the place. I just came back from Region 9, I spent 2 days there, is to, at the fastest time, to use the word, we have to manufacture skilled people. Build all the houses we are to build. We don't have the masons and carpenters to build.
Is it at the expense of the traditional sectors?
No, it is not. It is not. I think in some areas, and Freddie used to be a lecturer, in some areas we have trained too much of what we really don't need that volume. In the social science,
Sociology, yeah.
we have trained too much. And that's the point. The point is we have to start this conversation about TVET. Not when the boy fails CSEC. We have to, in this system, have the education system prepared for the child who don't want to pay attention to the book work, who want to do practical things with his hands.
You know,
And so that will help quickly. But the Board of Industrial Training, recognizing that those issues exist, we are doing all we can. Just give you the numbers. When I became minister, the average persons they were training under the previous government was 1,300 to 1,500 persons per year. By the time 2020 ended, we had already trained over 2,000 persons. 2021, over 50% more, we trained 3,086 persons. Our projection is to train 4,500.
What are we training them in?
Electrical installation, AC technicians, welders and fabricators, heavy duty equipment operators, plumbers. And the thing is, importantly, is not just training them, is to ensure that they're certified and accredited. Because you're moving to a place whereby you might be the best mechanic, but unless you're certified and accredited, you're certified by some standard. And the two standards they utilize around here, the American standard and the British standard.
I want to bring...
So the point I'm making, we are very much short. We have this deficit, and the government recognizes that, and we're working to, at the shortest possible time.
I want to bring you to something
He's
that...
agitated.
I want to bring you to something that I think our viewers would want to see on this program. You made a name for yourself during... Well,
did I?
You made a name for yourself, but you were prominent during the election rigging. I think you were on a nightly program,
yes.
with, you were one of the voices. That had to be something surreal, what was going on there. I think our viewers would want to know what madness went on there. You were in the thick of it.
Freddie,
They rigged that thing for 5 months?
The point is, look. I want to just say something, and then I'll come to the matter. Look, if you recall the Walter Rodney Commission of Inquiry, I testified there for 3 days, and I remember one of the commissioners asking me this question: why, with all the likely dangers, you would come forward and speak to this commission? And I answered it this way, that I wasn't speaking for myself, I was speaking to the young people of this country. Basically putting to them and showing, like you have done over the years, Freddie, what this country used to be. And I wanted to, tie in all some of the things they might have heard. And so the question you asked, it was the same thing. My energy came from the fact that as a citizen, we couldn't relive this. Gildarie just asked me my age. And without telling people my age, I already collected 2 pension books. So I have lived that time. And right through that period, Freddie, 5 months, I was confident. And I always say that every night in the program, I used to make the point. The young people of this country will not allow this country to go back there. And the thing was madness. It had to be madness because they were attempting to rig elections with the cameras rolling. And I recall a Commonwealth observer saying that to me. He said 35 years he's doing observation elections. And he has never seen anything like this. He said the closest, I think, is Tunisia, some of them North African country, or Algeria, some East Factor. He said that here the cameras are rolling, the TVs are on, and the people attempting to rig elections. But I was talking to Gildarie earlier, and I was making this point, that during Mr. Granger's tenure of 5 years, he never surprised me. I predicted how Mr. Granger would govern in 2011. And that is the reason why, even though I was telling Gildarie that former colleagues of the PNC came to me to support Granger, I told them that will not happen. I will not support David Granger because I know how this would have ended. When a man says to me, Freddie, look, my hero is Forbes Barnum. He didn't say Mandela, he didn't say Mahatma Gandhi, he didn't say Martin Luther King.
By Jack Deal.
Right. What else? You follow the point? And that is what I was saying to young people who want to change. What else do you want? That is your evidence of how the man will govern. That is your evidence of philosophically he sees the world. And so I predicted the behavior, I predicted how he would have governed. And so I had to, like so many thousands and hundreds of thousands of people, play my role to ensure that my children and my grandchildren, they don't live in a society whereby they cannot elect their leaders. And that's its fundamental. I lived in such a society. You lived in such a society where we didn't have the opportunity to elect our leaders. I could not allow my children and my grandchildren
Minister,
to
going forward, right? Going forward, every couple of weeks I get complaints from the security
companies,
security workers
Uh-huh.
complaining about security companies that are not paying them on time. And yet I turn around and open the newspapers and I see these same companies who have been breached and who are guilty of doing that, getting contract. I could probably call a couple of them, but they can sue me for sure. But I see them and I think I'm going to start calling them out. I get in texts every time. Minister, how come these companies, if they're breaches, get in compliances, and how come they're being allowed to maybe form another company, same principles, and continue the merry way?
But you
What are we
forgot
doing with
they
it?
don't pay NIS for them. I know about.
We start calling them.
They,
I have a serious issue with that.
you know, which complaints I get about these security
The
firms,
ministers in the hot seat,
and they are
Freddie.
employed by government.
Minister.
The thing is, look, the contract. I have no authority and power of that because they go into different ministries and whatever. Regarding what they're doing to employees, it's a sore matter. I can tell you right now. I have 400 cases in the court.
That is for security
Security
companies.
companies right now.
And what are the rest compare in terms of the percentage? that you
They
have?
are minimal to security companies.
So you're saying 80% of the case in the
Yes,
court?
court right now as I speak to you, 400 cases we have in the court, security company. What I did some time ago is that I issued a press release and I made a point, called them out. We called them in and had training session and all that kind of thing, security company, the Ministry of Labor. And I said to them, the next time I will be issuing a press release naming all the companies and the principles of the companies. The same point you were saying somebody going to sue you for. I am about to be
Thank you very
to do
much for that.
very shortly.
We need to protect our people.
Yes, that. But what is holding me back from dealing with security companies the way I want to deal with them is I'm short of one lawyer. Because I have said to them, this is the way I will deal with it. I will take you to court every day. Because I have lawyers by me. So let me see how much money you have. You understand me, to employ lawyers. But the security companies are notorious, yes. When I go to around the country to do other things, most of the complaints that come to the Minister of Labor is about security companies. Many times we have had to intervene. Many times I have had to intervene personally to ensure people get paid. So yes, I know that is one of the areas where I would say we're not doing so good as regards protecting people. That is the Ministry of Labor. And we recognize that, we're working on it, and we intervene from time to time. There are many court cases that have happened where magistrates have mandated people must be paid, and so we have a lot of cases that are happening. And I would say to people, the way we can deal with your matter is via an official complaint to the ministry. I say that to people all the time. I cannot intervene, the ministry cannot prosecute on your behalf a company, whichever company, via a front page article in Cultural News. Or
No, but
Because
the people are open to victimization.
no,
They
but
tell me that all the
no,
time.
Freddie, I'm hearing you. I understand that, and that's why.
If Gene Smith go and complain
No,
to you,
that's
they're
why.
going to knock off the
That's
woman.
why many times I've intervened based on anonymous calls. But let us say, if the person is a person who wants to play hardball, and I want to take the officers will take that company to court. We have to have the evidence to take to the court. We cannot take he said, she said. You follow me? So it has to be a report by Gildarie and that investigation, and then we take that to the court. So that the final thing is the court, and we have been able to recoup money via that system. But I'm saying to you that in many instances we have recouped money for persons.
Well, Minister, just excuse me there. Following Freddie's statement, point that he's making there, I remember going and covering as a reporter the cases in the court, rape cases. Reporters can't. I don't think you're allowed to sit.
No, not
during
under the
thing.
sexual offense.
It is in closed doors. My question to you, sir: do we need to have a revisit of the current arrangements? Because Freddie's right. You walk through the door. By the time you left there, it's like so many other things in Ghana. It's no longer. I was just told by somebody who was working close to the government that he made a proposal. By the time he give it to the people, you walk with somebody else calling and say that you just submitted this document. Nothing is secret in Guyana. So I think with what we've been hearing, what we know, I think maybe it would be reasonable to ask if it's not the right time for us to revisit those laws.
No, but the point, as I'm saying right now, is a proposal we could look at, the one you're raising. I'm saying that as I speak to you, we have several recommendations to strengthen, to amend labor laws in all areas, and we're discussing that to be guided by the Attorney General Chambers. I have thought about custodial sentences of people. You know, the same way how a lawyer goes back to the judge if a man don't honor his obligations after the court says okay. What they call what the lawyers, they go back to the court to ensure that a person who has said to the court, I will honor the court judgment, where you can go for 30 days in a prison, contempt of court. And that is what, no, I'm serious about it. Whether perhaps legal counsel at the ministry or whether the senior labor, the
But
chief
we're
labor
missing a
officer.
point in this discussion about those security. It's the role of women. Quite a number of them are single mothers.
Oh yes,
Quite a number.
yes.
And
Lots.
I can't agree with you, Minister Hamilton, that Gene Smith should go to the ministry. I think I believe Gene Smith will be dismissed. And in most circumstances, those security firms will want to teach the rest a lesson and dismiss Gene Smith. But what I don't understand about the law is if you steal $10,000 from a firm, it's a criminal offense, you're arrested. It's a criminal offense to employ people and not pay NIS for them. And I'm contending, based on my experience up to 2 months ago in the national park, and that organization, that security firm has been changed. But I am contending that a number of these security firms are not paying NIS. That's a criminal offense. Ministry of Labor has to work with NIS and bring these culprits to justice.
No, but let me say this to you, Freddie, and that is one of the issues I have to face every time I go there. Look, legally speaking, the Ministry of Labor has no jurisdiction over the issue of NIS. We do help, we do intervene. NIS come under its own act, and NIS got people like labor officers, they're called compliance officers. And I'm making the point that they must do their work. They could take people to court, the same way how we can take people to court, to ensure that, so if a person goes to them and say, okay, they have been deducting and they're remitting my thing, that person they could take them to court. But many persons believe that because it's a labor matter, the Ministry of Labor, we have jurisdiction. We don't have no jurisdiction at all regarding the issue about compliance or non-compliance of NIS. But as I'm saying, matters come to us by the dozens and we intervene. But the proper authority to deal with the issue of remitting of people's money that they deduct is the NIS, and in every they have districts, so they call it. They have what they call a compliance officer, whose job is to ensure that people comply with the law. First, deducting the NIS, and secondly, paying it into the NIS. But that's I would hope, and that the NIS is more involved to deal with that matter. But I heard you, I'm hearing Gildarie. If I would say to the public, one area that we have not yet taken a firm grip on is the whole issue of security company. And I'm speaking here as a minister. The security companies, how they are treating workers, how they are not paying them on time, how they are dealing with their leaves and all that kind of thing. But as I've said, we have started, and I mentioned to you we have over 400 cases right now in the court to ensure that people get justice from security companies.
Thank you very much, Freddie. And I want to bring 2 points here. This conversation has brought me back. We went to Burbis, my wife and I, to a government facility. Had to do some business there, and the security guard said, "Come, Mr. Gildarie," and she almost to the point of tears. She says, "I'm working with a security company now 3 months, and they tell me today, tomorrow." So I said, "Why don't you quit?" Saying, "Go where?"
Yeah, I get that all.
And they tell her. I said, "Pick up the phone and call." So I called the lady. There's the prince, one of the ladies here, and she says, "We sent in a check there." I went back the next week. Same situation. There was no pay. Then we find out that the company is just about to wind up, so the lady probably would not get her money. The second thing is, I was covering a case for Kaiser News, and we had to go down to the Ministry of Labor. I don't think you were there. And do you know that there was a company in Guyana that just refused to turn up at a meeting with the chief labor officer, Russell? I'm not sure if they were operating. You would not believe the people said we're not coming. Would not come in.
But
And I want to bring why I raise that, because I understand, Minister, with the oil and gas industry as it is right now and how it's expanding. The Ministry of Labor in Guyana is facing a severe problem. There are some job placement companies in Guyana, and they're running rackets. What has the Ministry of Labor found with regards to that?
Okay, the first thing is, I assembled 84 companies that participate in work in oil and gas in this country last December, and we had a one-day session with them at the Pegasus, dealing with similar matters. As regards the placement companies you mentioned, right now we are discussing how we utilize the law that governs the Central Recruitment and Manpower Agency, because these employment agencies, they need a regulator, and we're about having all of them registered who are functioning here and to be regulated.
Just one question. Are you saying that 84 job placement companies
No,
just
I'm
sprang
saying,
up?
no, 84 companies that are in oil and gas we assembled,
Oh,
including
okay.
those that are what you call employment agencies. So we have to regulate the employment agencies. The employment agency should be registered in Guyana. Employment agencies should pay fees to register in Guyana. The same way how every year a little business we have to go and you go to the court and you pay whatever $1,000, $2,500. That is employment agency. So we are at that place. We are about doing a form to have them register. Of course, we have to have the lawyers there. So we know that there's a problem, because I have had to deal with the issue. Freddie Kissoon, the employment agency, employ a man. But the man is sent to work with Gildarie. And he's working with Gildarie for 3 years. and suddenly receive a letter from one Freddie Kissoon dismissing him. And he is, how this guy is dismissing me, and
You're working
the
with
person
it,
who
right?
I'm working with all the time is Gildarie. So you have that problem, and we have to fix it. And we
What
are,
are the problems the workers facing?
well,
right now?
we have issues of the equal pay for equal job issues, where people have raised it with me. Of course,
That's where expatriates are being
paid
given
far,
the same
right,
jobs.
but paid more. They're
Expatriates
being
and locals,
they're
same
being-
jobs,
they're
but
being-
one getting paid.
They're being paid more money. I have raised it with ExxonMobil, and I have said to them that, you weren't accused, but several of the people who work in oil and gas, there is this accusation, and I said to them that I think you have a duty to ensure that all the contractors you bring into this space, they comply.
But Minister, I got an issue with that. Why are we treating them with kids' gloves? Why don't we hit fines in them?
No, but the point is, again, we're going back to the same point. Whilst I am hearing all of this, Gildarie and Freddie, no one has made a formal report. For us to act, I'm saying that, I know people might say, okay, the same point Freddie's raising, the man might get knocked out. But to build a case, we
Well, I got a case
we
where
cannot build a case.
I got a case where a young lady at a Chinese supermarket near to where I live has not had leave, has not been given leave for 3 years. So I said to her, I will take it up. But she is so afraid. You could imagine 3 years. Every time I go in there, I said, this woman works. She has 3 children, and they haven't given her leave. But, Minister, you said earlier in this program that you're also a politician. We have to, I think our viewers would want to talk about politics. And I want to ask you a strange question, which I believe our viewers will be interested in. Why did you allow, I know where you come from, we're about the same age, and you're a no-nonsense man. Why you allow in Parliament Jeremy Figueroa to keep hitting and hitting the man all the time? Why didn't you intervene?
He was sitting there. He was
He
sitting
was
there.
right.
I'm saying far.
You want a man to walk across the floor and stop. This joint no confidence.
Yeah,
vote.
Yeah,
Yes.
Jeremy Figueroa, that man, he really broke that man's hand.
Not just him, the other guy was hitting, what's it, boy,
Chawan.
the boy from Essequibo also.
Was
But-
hitting Chawandas.
Yeah. What's it, Raskumar, I think the boy name. But the thing is, look, the issue of labor relations, it has to be modernized, and that's what we're and the people who represent workers in this country are fossilized. 80% of them are fossils.
No, we gotta talk about that.
Right.
We gotta talk about that. We gotta talk
Secondly,
about
they
that
make
right
no
now.
entrance for young people and women to enter into the leadership of.
Is there anything that we could do or you could do as a Minister of Labour?
No, the
They're
people
independent.
who gave them their dues, they can do a lot of things.
Let's tell viewers.
Call names.
Let's wait.
GPS. Call names.
GPS.
Patrick Yard is there
Patrick
for
Yard has been there for
50, 60
more than
years.
31 years.
All right, I'm just calling something.
More than 31. Lincoln Lewis is following in the footsteps of Polydor. Polydor was more than 40 years the head of the Trade Union Council, TUC. Lincoln Lewis, who's nearing his 80s, is more than 30 years head of the Trade Union Council. Lincoln Lewis
Double
is
time age.
Lincoln Lewis is the TUC. The TUC is Lincoln Lewis. Lincoln Lewis is Cuchillo Labour College. Cuchillo Labour College is Lincoln Lewis. No one has ever written a letter in the press the past 20 years and signed that letter as chairman of the Trade Union Council. It's always General Secretary of the Trade Union Council, Lincoln Lewis. Norris Witter, who's at the office of the president every week, picketing, telling us about accountability and transparency, has never spoken publicly about the Lincoln Lewis hegemony in the TUC. He can't even say a word to Lincoln Lewis, but he outside the president's office telling me we must get transparency. What about transparency in the Trade Union Council? Minister, how could any public servant pay dues to a union when the man who heads the union more than 32 years now? So half of the population wasn't born when this man was head of the public service union.
But the thing is, look, let me say this to you all, gentlemen. Look, as I understand it, there was once in the life of this country where you had about 100 trade unions, in Guyana. Today, you only have 18 on the books. So the point I'm trying to raise is how trade unions have fallen from grace and the recognition of people that they're useless, most of them. The leaders, useless. Most of them, they're treating them like their own fiefdoms, no accountability, no transparency. The first year I ministered in 2021, they invited me to go speak at the TUC, made a rally during at time. And, they got up there, same Lincoln and Witter and, with the government, the issue about transparency. And when I got there to speak, the same points I raised. The hypocrisy that
must begin at home. Charity
you don't know.
home.
I started by that. I said, that here you calling on the government to be, and you are no way close to being transparent or accountable. You all have just taken over these things, and that is and that is the point I'm making. That listen, now they struggle. Importantly, and this is an important point people got to pay attention to. You would note they have this fight always about contract employees. And they want everybody to be in a fixed establishment. But they're so fossilized that they haven't even recognized that the young people don't see themselves being 30 years in a job. So young people, young professionals, they want to be on contracts. Mm-hmm. Because the contract job allow them to collect 2 gratuities a year that they can plan with. When I was in Ministry of Health, young doctors would say, Minister, my next gratuity, I would pay down on my car. My next gratuity, I will buy my windows. So cheap money they're getting.
Mm-hmm. That's one side, Minister, but how do you protect the government from the accusations? Because this is the accusations that this is job for the boys. There's one way through the back door, putting somebody into the public service and giving job to the boys and girls. How do you protect against
Gildarie, they have people who are drivers are contract workers. They got the clerks of contract. This fallacy and foolishness that is this argument that is only people at some higher grade are contract employees is nonsense. They're all strands of employees at all levels that are contract employees. I am saying to you that 80% of persons who are coming into the public service at this moment, their preference is to be on contract. Because I was just making a point. They are collecting that gratuity. I give you another case of the stupidity of the other government. We trained 1,200 doctors. And when Gildarie came in, they made it mandatory that all the doctors must go on the fixed establishment. And we lost 40% of the doctors.
Was that because of reason? You think so?
Yes, because again, Gildarie, when you go on the fixed establishment, is the one salary you will receive. $250,000. When you're in a contract, twice a year, you receive 22.25% of that.
It's a simpler way of working for more money.
Yes, more money. That's the point I'm making to you. So this nonsense about we trying to break up unions is nonsense. I am telling you. Go talk to young professionals out there. And they will tell you their preference. Because again, they don't see themselves being at one job for decades. They are nimble professionals. They can change employment. They can go study something else. And Freddie, you would have experienced that. Man started with one thing at university, and a couple years after, he diverted to something and so, right? So the point is, the unions, I have said that to them, I believe the people need representation. The contract employer, I believe they need representation. But where the unions they're at, nobody has any confidence in the unions that they can represent them. You follow? But they have this conversation that we are deliberately giving people contracts to break up trade unions because of the check-off system or whatever. They take people money at the source to give to them. And you know what? The same happened to AFC in their 5 years. They employed contract employees by the hundreds. They brought people into the system. The same thing they were chastising
I want to keep you with politics. That's because I feel our viewers would like you to talk about that. When you gave that explosive testimony at the Walter Rodney Commission inquiry, afterwards, there were quite a number of revelations you made. Were there threats in your life after?
No, the point, Freddie, I even now,
The PNC leadership
even now
threatened
as minister, PNC people said to me this. Some of them said to me, Joe, you did a work on the PNC. I said to them, I spent 3 days, but I could have spent 3 weeks in the box. I had enough to say that I could have spent 3 weeks there. And some people, I didn't bore with them. But the point is, as I said earlier, it was an important thing for me to do, for young people to understand what played out in those days, and to put some things together. I mean, there even people who were involved, like Freddie Kissoon, I think there were new things that he didn't know. Might have had an understanding, might. But the fact is that what transpired, what played out, the role the organization I was a part of played during the period. And I was being honest, I was being truthful. And I think it has done a good service for the nation. I think it has redeemed me as a person. Because
Minister, I want to ask you some inside business here.
Yes.
And I know Freddie along the same political lines. We're in some very challenging times, especially with the oil and gas. How, and if you could just shed some light, by Jagdeo no longer the president, now the vice president, how was his relationship? How do you think he's comfortable where he is? Or how has been the cabinet working together on the Irfan Ali?
Well, the point is, let me say this to you. I give you this. I never knew Irfan Ali before when they had the Lusiknan massacre. What year was that? 2008 or something like that. And I turned on the television one afternoon and I saw a young man passionately speaking to this man. I never knew him before then. And of course, at that time, as I was mentioning to you earlier, I was in political sabbatical, as we all call it, right? But since I've gotten to know him, and as president, sometimes and I'm far older than him, for that matter, I have 2 sons who are elder than the president. It's like I get this sense that this was a man who was planning to be president. The thoughts, what he wants to do, where he wants to go. You were just making a point that it's not an easy thing that in 2 years in government, you're able to have a conversation with the American government. And they're making $2 billion US dollars available for you all to work together in partnership. That's an accomplishment. I know countries that are huger than Guyana who have tried that for years, maybe decades, never. But when you look, he knows where he wants to go. He knows what he wants to do. He knows what he wants for this country. And sometimes the thoughts, the ideas he brings to bear are fashion and modernized ideas. You ask about Jagdeo. I've said this to people. I have seen Jagdeo work. I worked closely with Jagdeo 2 years coming up to elections, because when he was opposition leader, I worked every day. I was at that office at Church Street, because I was asked to, because I was a former PNC person, persons who were leaving the PNC, activists and so, and PNC people, I was asked to shepherd them so that they would feel more comfortable that they were coming across over whatever, and to give them that strength. And so I worked with it, and I've said to people, I work with a lot of politicians. Barry Jagdeo is the master blaster of politics. That's when you're talking about, I'm talking about strategic. And so you ask about it, look, Jagdeo is the general secretary of the People's Progressive Party, the party that caused us to be in government. And you always make the point, it is not a government that goes to people to ask them to vote for them. It's a political party. So his role is important in everything that is happening from the standpoint of, Freddie was making the point earlier about people, it's people, ordinary people vote for you to ensure you can get into government. As a leader, general secretary of the party, he has that responsibility, that this party that promised and made commitments, you have to deliver. And that is the reason why, if you look at all the ministers, in whatever sector we are, we seem to be restless all the time, right? Because it's because the seriousness of that commitment to people. And as the president said when he opened the expo the other day, that we cannot do things in straight line and hope to reach where we want to reach. And so the cabinet, fantastic cabinet. People like me who were, the young ministers.
People like you are old heads.
Yeah. The people like me are,
Call yourself old lad, Freddie?
If I call myself an old head? Yes, I'm an
the
old
young
head.
ministers, they call me Uncle Joe. So, you understand me? So, you have seen the young people trusted into political management, managing a government. And I've been around a while. You look at them. Some people never was around politics. Let's look at Susan Rodriguez. I got to know her when I was at the office. So basically, she just came to politics about a year or two before elections. Onedge Waldron. And look, the role she's playing coming out of a PNC family. You understand?
Yeah, her father was
what she had to
Frankie
live,
Waldron,
yeah,
her
what
father
she had to live with, and so maybe still has to live with. Friends she has lost, and all those kinds of issues because of a decision she has made. So when you look, all the ministers, they are ensuring they give service, and that is the thing. Every day when we sit down, the president, vice president, that's what they preach. You have to give service to people. Forget about all the other fluff and thing. You have to go there, give service. You have to keep touching base with the people. Let them feel that you care. And that is what we are all about.
Which you didn't do that.
Well, that's right. That is what the government is all about. Look, I tell you this, as Minister of Labor, every week, practically, in the 2 years, I am someplace other than my office 2 or 3 days in every week. We talked earlier about skills. I have to ensure that wherever people live, they have the opportunities to be trained and to participate in the economy. So today, I can speak. We have training programs at the highest peak where people live in this country, Kurukubaru, 3,200 feet above sea. Never before. K2, Paramakatay, Linden. Linden right now, as I speak to you, we have about 500
You're welcome in
persons.
Linden. You're welcome.
Well, the people, 179 people gathered there the last week I was there at Linden, and then another 70 in Kokwani. Right now,
There were no boos or shouting or anything.
people want
Change. People want
development,
things to be done.
development for themselves. We have nearly 500 people, I'm talking about Board of Industrial Training, being trained right now in Region 10. So when people talk about the government is not paying attention, it's just foolish talk. I am telling you, right now, in 7 areas, training, free training. because the Board of Industrial Training pays all the costs to train people, everything. So through the length and breadth of this country, we're giving service, all the ministers, and we will continue to do that because we made commitment to people, and we can't let them down. Some people, and now the fact that you're giving service is like, if you go on my page and I am speaking to 180 persons someplace, and people say, okay, when are you coming to train people at Port Kaituma? Or when are you coming to train people at Matthews Ridge? You understand me? So that good is transcending. And so, as I was saying to you earlier, we set out to train 4,500 persons in 2022. That number now will go to about 6,000.
And there's the good and the bad, ladies and gentlemen.
But Minister
Freddie?
Hamilton, when is this nonsense going to stop?
Which one?
You have a legitimate protest, legitimate process, and people should have a right. A man was shot in circumstances that the villagers feel. How did that? Why should you be beating up a lady selling eggs because she's Indian? Why should be burning a man minibus?
Because
I grew up with that, I mean.
Freddie, look. Is this the PNC? A lot of people ask me why I
Left.
left the PNC, and the evidence is there. You're seeing. I mean, there's nothing changes because every political thought rotates around racial, ethnic consideration. Every political thought.
But a question there, are you connecting what happened up there to the PNC, or is that a pure criminal
I am
thing?
connecting it to the PNC.
You are.
Because I know enough that there were PNC instigators who were part and parcel of everything that happened there. And they're so coward. They're a set of cowards.
Chief a lady
Because they utilize the ordinary people. Me and Robert Corbyn fall out for this same thing. When they allowed them people to overrun the office of the president.
That's what Mark Benz happened.
Yes. You understand me?
And Duncan from Linden.
Right? And I said to them, this is what y'all do to ordinary people. None of y'all cousin and your wife and your child and children, they weren't there. You see, ordinary poor people. A woman from Ansgrove died who left 5 children. One of the persons who were shot.
Got shot.
Yes, and she was a female. I said, look, who's going to take care of that woman, 5 children? So the point I'm making is every activity that is disruptive, that is violent, that takes out their vengeance on people, Indian people, are PNC activities. Don't fool yourself. It cannot happen unless it has endorsement from the leadership of the PNC.
But look what Harmon and Granger did in Cotton Tree in September. I mean, they were leader. I mean, was that look what happened to people.
So it's the same thing. It's the same thing because they cannot discuss political development and their credentials against the PPP Civic. So the only conversation, every time you hear them spout, is about racism and political discrimination and so on, ethnic discrimination and so on.
Norton can change the PNC for the better?
Norton cannot change himself for the better. They changed the PNC.
I have 2 more questions for you, Minister. I got to ask you this. The first one, how many labor officers are for Region 4? And could you give us an idea as to the other region? I was told by a former chief labor officer that when you go into the Ministry of Labor, there was only one officer for Region 4. I think it was that. And you said when you went in there was no ministry. Could you tell us what's the status?
No, well, when I became minister, there were 16 labor officers. Most, if not all of them, were Georgetown centered.
Uh-huh.
They didn't have
the other regions.
They didn't have no labor office in Region 1, 7, 8, and 9. None.
What do you have now?
Now we increased that to 26.
Uh-huh.
And in every region, we have labor officers, either 1 or 2.
So with all the business, let's say you got 5,000 business. Are you saying in Region 4 you have 3 officers or whatever?
Region
it is?
4, we have far more than 3 officers. What I have done in Region 4 is subdivided into Georgetown, East Coast, East Bank. I
Is
have
it enough?
if 26 is enough.
Uh-huh.
Well, the 26 is doing the job that I want them to do.
Uh-huh.
Part of the job is training. Part of the job is compliance, ensuring that it's happening.
What about inspection?
No inspections and
Inspections,
to ensure that people comply. The inspection was the word I wanted. Yeah, to comply. I have just said to you earlier that because of how we have been proceeding, last year we recouped $39 million of people.
Minister, we are near to time.
Yeah.
We're near
Thank
to
you.
time. So I want to get some quick thoughts. I think our time is on us now. Leonard has concentrated on the labor thing. I want to deal more with politics because I've known you so long. Why did the AP and UFC lose the elections? And they lost legal legitimacy. Why did they? In your opinion,
Because
did
they're
you put it down to them or
because
Benja was a big factor?
no, because they're failures. Look, man, Freddie, it's a simple matter. Go through all the people who participated in the government of AFC, APNU. What did they accomplish for themselves? That's an important thing, you know. When you're going to elect a man to govern you, you must first look at in his profession or his own personal life. What has he accomplished? Because properly you cannot help people to accomplish if you have not accomplished anything. And if you look at the government, Nagamoto, in his profession as a lawyer, what standing he had. You follow the point? I'm not castigating, I'm trying to make serious points here. All the people, what did they do? You follow me? For themselves. So, you go into government is a business. Government, you have to run it to succeed. And you have to have ideas to succeed. So their failure, it's not elections, APNU lost election, you know. APNU lost election since they went into government. Because they were not delivering anything. Look, without boasting, any person who's paying attention, look at what the PPP Civic we have done in 2 years. And in all the sectors you could look at. And I don't, people, the evidence is there. Whichever sector you look at. What these people did in 5 years. Look, okay, Patterson, what can he say he accomplished other than building...
He got $1 million.
Other than building 3 overpass. His big project was building 3 overpass. And then he was attempting to give us a 3-lane bridge. The first time in history of this.
We got to...
So the point I'm making is, Freddie, the failure was they couldn't manage. They were incapable of managing a government, and the people recognized. And the young people who would have said give them a chance, they now were able to make comparison.
You want to say anything before we close?
No, I have one more question and closes with that, and we take it from there. Minister, you're part of a government, like I said before, that is shepherding this country through some very important times, especially with the oil and gas, and a lot of money is there. Have you seen any evidence of corruption, and do you believe that the government is handling or is doing enough to tackle the issue of corruption?
Well, the point is, let me say, look, the issue of corruption is out there. I think the government is doing everything possible to ensure transparency and accountability. I sit in the cabinet, and every Thursday, contracts by the list, long list come there, all of those. So, as the level of procurement, where all of this can happen, we are paying attention to it. All the contracts by the hundreds of millions, whatever, all of those contracts are advertised publicly. They're evaluated by people who are not politicians, people. They tender board, and then they come to the cabinet. So there have always been allegations of all the issues. But our position, the government position is, if you have the evidence, take it to the police to investigate. And further, the government has said nobody is sacred. If people are caught with involvement in corruption, and you have the evidence. We have in months into our government, the allegation was made with evidence for that matter, according to the police, against a permanent secretary, and that's a matter in the court that I don't
Mr.
I don't want
we
to
have to
comment
close.
on.
We went just a few minutes over. We could close on a light note. You say you're better looking than Harmon. You dress better than him. Actually,
What are you holding the man short for?
actually, that shirt looks better on with his jacket. No, it does. But Minister Harmon, but Minister,
He's tied up with this guy.
I did that
deliberately.
I did that deliberately. We have to have you back, and I shifting the focus away from labor, because you wanted the old heads in politics. I didn't get your take on Buxton, your take on why the WPA deteriorated so badly, Clive Thomas, Fupner, all of these things our young people want to know about.
I'm available.
It was a pleasure having you. We have to have you back.
I'm available at any time to discuss these matters because I think they're important for young people.
So we're going to have a session with politics.
Yes, at any time. I'm prepared
Absolutely,
to sit down
dear.
and discuss that.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. And as always, there's a couple of things that we want to say to you. Number one, please be very careful on the roadways. As we always say, you cannot put a value to life, neither property. We've seen too much of that, too much madness on the roadways. So let's make sure that we protect our lives, our loved ones, and protect other people's lives as well. On Friday, it's going to be pretty interesting. We have our former commissioner of police, Silal Prasad, and you want to hear about the boxing gang. You want to hear about Lindo Creek. You want to hear about what he feels about racism in the police force. It is going to be interesting because he's written a book about it, and we are going to have him talk about that. And of course, it's the first time that you see a former commissioner of police who's going to be talking about some very important points in our history, especially that period after 2000. And so we're going to be seeing you Friday evening, same place, same time. Have a pleasant rest of the day. Until Minister, thank you.